Because the real truck which inspired this model project was owned by a construction company, I've made the assumption that the interior trim level was much more of a basic fleet spec rather than the high-end Eagle trim provided in the Transtar 4300 kit. While working on the interior for this model, I've come across some interesting Ertl, Paystar, and Transtar trivia, starting with the Transtar 4300 kit I'm using to build this model. I'm using one of the round 2 reissues, which is molded all in white plastic, as compared to the black and yellow plastic the original issue kit came in. Those of you who have built one of these kits may have noticed part number 134. It's not called up anywhere on the instructions, and becomes a leftover part when the kit's fully assembled. Part number 134 dates back to 1973, when Ertl issued their first international truck kits in 1/25th scale, including the Transtar 4200 conventional. On the real truck, heating system components and controls were located under the passenger seat, and part number 134 was one of those details. It attaches to part number 158, which is the seat base, and the round projection on part number 134 represents the heater fan. Ertl molded the cabin hood of their Transtar 4200 in light blue plastic, and part number 134 is visible here at the top center of the picture. Part number 158 is at the top center of this picture, and it has 2 holes molded in it for the locating pegs on the seat. When assembled, these parts provided a good representation of the seat base and heater controls on the real truck, as seen by this picture of a 1:1 scale Transtar conventional, which interestingly also has the rather unusual dash with 2 tachographs as molded in the Ertl kits. This picture of the black plastic parts tree from the 4200 kit shows the driver and passenger seats, and also shows air ride suspension, which was another part unique to this kit only. One more item unique to the Transtar 4200 kit was the Cummins V-903 engine. This was replaced on the Transtar 4300 with the International V800 series engine. Tooling for the Transtar 4200 was reworked in the early 1980s to create the Transtar 4300. Along the way, part number 158 was lost, as well as the air ride suspension. Part number 134 remained on the parts tree. Other international kits using the same cab shell, including the Paystar 5000 dump truck and the concrete mixer, use many of the same components for the frame and running gear, as well as the cab interior. Part numbers are slightly different from the heating system components, 89 and 97, with the difference being 97 does not have any holes molded in it for a passenger seat. This parts tree is from one of the reissued dump truck kits, molded entirely in gray plastic. You can see the lack of holes in the seat base, and only 1 seat provided. Lack of a passenger seat is not unheard of in some trucks, depending on the application, such as this example, which is a Paystar 5000 concrete mixer, clearly showing no passenger seat fitted. At a glance, the real truck looks fairly similar to the model shown on the box art, including the color. On the subject of color, an original issue Paystar 5000 dump truck kit I have was molded in orange plastic for the cabin hood. Transtar and Paystar kit cabs side by side show one major difference. The Paystar kits are designed with single exhaust only, so they don't have a second set of holes in the back of the cab for the left side exhaust bracket. On to the seat base for my model. Using 40 thou styrene sheet, I cut pieces and assembled a basic box using an original issue Paystar kit seat base as a guide. Top left corner of the box was built up with square styrene strip to allow the 45-degree bevel to be sanded in later. Extra bracing was glued into the corners, and then part number 134 was glued in place, and after everything had cured, everything was sanded smooth and the corners were rounded off slightly. Styrene strips are laminated together and glued in place to form the projecting box for the heater controls. Styrene rivets, 0.25 diameter, were laid out and glued into drilled holes to simulate fastener heads. A small piece of styrene strip was glued in place on the bottom side where it would be hidden from view to serve as a holder for painting. The color I used was Tamiya's Desert Yellow, which seemed to be a fairly close match for the interior color in some of the views I had been able to find online. In this picture, a tubular base for the passenger seat can be seen, which I simulated with 3/64 brass wire bent to shape. The seat is an Ertl kit part with the mounting pins removed and the back filled in with styrene strip and tube. I used Tamiya's flat brown, number XF10, for the upholstery color. Tamiya's acrylics work well for brush painting seats and other detail items. Heater controls are represented by small styrene pieces glued onto a piece of 0.15 by 100 thou wide styrene strip. Painted flat black, this is reasonably convincing, and flat black was also used to touch up the heater motor. With the seat glued in place, the completed seat base and passenger seat is now a subassembly that's ready for installation in the cab. Small pieces of styrene angle, 100 thou by 100 thou, were sanded to reduce their thickness, painted silver, and glued on the edges of the cab floor to represent the aluminum strips holding down the floor mat. The passenger seat and its attached base were glued down, and the model is one step closer to completion. Thank you for watching this little tutorial and the attendant kit trivia. On the corner of the cab you can see the exhaust brackets. I'm going to try to get another video next Monday showing the exhaust system installation on this model.